we're live. Nick,
Hey,
how's it going?
pretty good. How you doing, Josh?
I'm good. I'm uh I'm futzing around still as I have been for the last 10 minutes with OBS settings. I'm actually kind of enjoying it. This is fun. Have you We were just
Yeah,
talking this is my second time, your first time using Twist guest star?
yeah, yeah. Like I was saying, I use OBS like you were using, but I use a tool called Video.Ninja.
Mhm. Oh, sorry, I just muted you. Sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I use Video.Ninja, but I think it used to be called OBS.Ninja, and I'm guessing they renamed it just to make it more generic, so it's not specific to OBS because it's essentially just a browser source. Like it's a web
Mm.
page that you bring in, as you know, to OBS. Like most of my most of my stream is like all web views. Like there's like the chat is a web view or like a browser source. I have
Mhm.
these like animations going on. That's a browser source. Myself and the guest are browser sources as well. So it's like it's just like it's like the good old internet. It's all smoke and
Yeah.
mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. But it is actually really cool that you can use web tech like browser sources for all this stuff. That still kind of blows my mind that so much of OBS that people use is just
Yeah,
browser sources.
yeah, no, exactly. I like it because I mean, as a web developer, you're already familiar with that technology, so it's really nice that you can actually just keep using those skills. It's the classic, like always bet on JavaScript.
Yeah,
But I'd also throw in there always bet on HTML and CSS as well. So
definitely. The Holy Trinity,
yeah,
as I like to teach it.
yeah, yeah. So
Oh, be excellent.
yeah, so we're talking about what today? Our favorite soft drinks, or what are we doing?
I'm personally partial to Dr. Pepper,
Yeah,
failing that root beer. But no, we're going to
yeah,
talk about ESLint rules. Um, I'm really excited about ESLint rules. I think they're a powerful way of linting or looking at your code without running it and finding potentially better things to do in your apps. I'm curious though, given that we've already streamed ESLint together, can you restate perhaps what is your
yeah.
personal relationship with your linter?
Yeah, I rely on it heavily. I'm a big fan of automating as much stuff as possible. Like, um, you've been doing web dev for a while too, and I literally remember code reviews where there's the linting part, but there's also the formatting, and I know you've mentioned this several times. Do not use ESLint in formatting, and I totally agree with that. But tools like Prettier, ESLint, stuff like that, they're a godsend to just being able to work. It makes things more maintainable, consistent, and it removes a whole category of code reviews that we used to have to do. Like, this would be more readable if you tab that over twice, and I'd actually prefer if you destructured this variable instead of doing props dot,
Ooh, new
the
nuggets.
name of the property, for example. So, and I think one thing I really like about these things too is it removes being getting personal about things, because
Yeah.
the robot said, instead of me in a code review saying like, "Hey Josh, like this is how we format things," or this is how we structure, this is our coding guide. You don't even have to get involved with that, and so nobody would even take offense. It's just like, okay, these are the rules are for the project. I can't commit my code because the pre-commit hook is saying I need there's this lint error, so okay, I got to fix it. Or if you don't have pre-commit hooks, you know, in your deploy when it's checking for the linting potentially, it just doesn't let you do it. And I think that's great. And there's the huge maintainability aspect of it. And like a clear example of this for me is I used to work at dev.2, as you know, and for the longest time I was the only front end dev on the team.
Whew.
And so like I was reviewing a lot of code. Like we had full stack people on the team, so they
Ah,
were doing some front end as well. But like a lot of times it was me doing a lot of this stuff, and also just external contributors, like to just make my life more maintainable. linting, prettier, all those things, like all the AST goodness was like just amazing for me, for my sanity. So
Yeah, for sure. I want to get to the chat because there are a few juicy bits in there. But before I do, I will
yeah,
express strong agreement for sure. Yeah. People always say automate the boring stuff. Why stop there? Um,
yeah,
Joy, yes. Joy asked a really good question that I'll answer after this. I agree. Less mental load to ship code. You want to reduce the mental load, increase auto beast mode. Joy asked on Dev 2 the what is like the coolest or most esoteric thing, I believe the question was, from ESLint
mhm,
rules that you've seen in the wild. So it's the coolest
yeah.
off-label use. Um, I I would love to get your hot take on this or thoughts of you've seen other things. I've seen ESLint be used to migrate. Um, at Codecademy, we were switching from CSS and JS and like just raw like styled tags with emotion and even
Okay,
older .sass like SAS SCSS files to our
okay.
fancy schmancy props based React components. And we wrote ESLint rules that would automatically migrate very basic. Ooh, I see your guest star chat. That's cool. Oh,
Okay, cool.
why
Nice.
do I see that? Huh.
I don't know.
That's interesting. That's just right on the stream. I'll send that to you in the Slack.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah, so like it would migrate like your raw template literal strings in your CSS to like a full on usage of a React component, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, the I never I never used ESLint in that way. Like, I mean, I've definitely, like, when there's auto fixing rules for ESLint, like what I'll do is like I'll just run it against literally all the files. But that's not so much to migrate things necessarily. Uh, I definitely did migration, but I did it with the same concept. So using ASTs as well, abstract syntax trees, but using code mods. So this was like with Babel, like for example, when React pulled out prop types out of React,
Yeah.
they provided code mods, and I ran this on a very large code base, and it ran perfectly.
Mm.
And but it's the same idea as what you're talking about. It's just this was like a laser focused, like one time kind of thing. But I mean, using the ESLint rules, it's to me it's the same thing. I think this was maybe before ESLint became even more prevalent. Maybe
Mm.
like, I mean, ESLint
It
was
was a
definitely
while
around
ago.
then too. Yeah, but I'm trying to remember the code mods. I think that was like when I ran that. I think it was 2017. So it's been a while. But
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, like any kind of, again though, this ties just back into the automation, which I think is amazing. Like the last thing I'd want to do on earth is like, okay, I'm going to go through every component in React when we were using prop types. This is and literally doing search and replace or copy paste, like there's definitely many other things that I could probably do with my time than that. So, but
Definitely.
yeah, no, it's really cool that you mentioned it that way. I hadn't thought of it that way for a migration, but it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I like about using ESLint specifically for migrations is that it keeps the migration persistent. If someone adds a new instance of the existing pattern, then the ESLint rule
Oh
will
yeah,
let them know in their editor and squiggle them.
yeah,
Which answers Joey of UI's question: TS Morph versus ESLint. TS Morph is another very awesome library in the open source space that lets you do transformations. It's tailored to TypeScript, but TypeScript's a superset of JavaScript, so it works for everything.
yeah,
Um, that's there you go. TS Morph is great and great for one-time uses, but if you want to keep it persistent, you could run TS Morph in a CI check or even as a commit hook, or you could just keep it as an ESLint rule.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
and this is also why I like pre-commit hooks. I know some people don't like pre-commit hooks, but I think from a maintainability standpoint, like I guess it depends what you put in your pre-commit hooks too, right? Like I've definitely added tests in pre-commit hooks, but I guess it depends. Like basically, if the process is slowing you down, then maybe you need to revisit it. But
Yeah.
I definitely think at a minimum for a pre-commit hook, you do the linting, you do the formatting. It's pretty quick, like because otherwise you're wasting time on CI/CD where it goes up and then it does the check, because like typically you would also do a lint check on the server just to make sure that no rogue unformatted or rules go in. So like, why send it up there to start wasting time in CI when you can just auto correct that immediately locally? I know
Yeah.
people have opinions about it. Some people really don't like pre-commit hooks, but I think they're great.
Yeah.
But again, it depends what you put in, I guess. You know, like if you're like, go do two things for 2 hours while I'm committing code, maybe not. But like if it's like 5-10 seconds to just merge it with all those checks and like auto fix things, I think it's great.
Yeah. I love commit hooks for formatting. For lint rules, I don't like it when it gets slow because it gets annoying. Um,
Mhm.
Although I haven't worked at a company in quite some time, almost a year and a
Yeah,
half. So perhaps the $20 a commit is not being factored into my equations. When you add
yeah,
TypeScript to your linting, it does make the commit hooks much slower, which is a little unfortunate, which is why I generally don't for TypeScript code bases. But speaking to Bogdam in the chat, love the name. Yeah, the ESLint plugin simple import sort package is quite popular and awesome. I use it in all my new packages. Simple import sort. It's super fast,
okay,
super opinionated and configurable, and it just works. It's lovely. So what I do normally is I'll
gotcha.
have in my editor, I'll have ESLint squigglies showing up as warnings, and then you can run in VS Code, fix all auto fixable errors, and voila, it
Okay,
works. And I can see you
gotcha.
googling it, or going to the link, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And like, and this gets back to the like, some people might be like, I don't like that or whatever, but I find like I there's a lot of hills that I don't want to die on, and like once rules are in place, unless the rules of a team are really causing friction for me, that I'll bring it up and discuss like this is why I think we should change it or move it. But otherwise, if it's just a like I don't really like this rule, I'm not going to argue about it. That's what the team decided, and you know I got other things to do. I'm okay if you know if they prefer single quotes or double quotes or backticks, like that's fine with me. Like
Yeah,
I just want to I want to do the actual work, which is what this gets back to, is all this automation, removes a whole set of things that you would do that you can dedicate that time to actually focusing on the real problem, which is the feature or the bug fix. So
for sure. Yeah. Speaking of which, I would love to dive into writing a custom ESLint rule because the more you can automate, the more you can take off that mental load away from people, the better. We were talking about making a custom ESLint rule. Ooh, pardon me, my body's excited. To destructure props, or rather to have you prefer destructuring props in components. Do you want to tell us a little bit
yeah,
about what that is and why you would prefer that?
yeah. Well, I generally like I generally prefer destructuring because I don't like having to do, for example, like props dot whatever, multiple times, and especially if you're using it in a bunch of places. And I know this rule already exists, or some form of it, but I I thought it would be an interesting one to look at, because I have a feeling it'll reveal some of the it seems like a more complex rule. So I thought it would be fun to tackle this, even if that rule might exist already. So
Mm-hmm.
because I have a feeling somebody in the chat might say, hey, that rule already exists, but I just think it'll be interesting to dive into it, because um like Josh was saying at the beginning of the stream, we've done we've actually done two streams together. The first one was about your book, which shout out to Josh's book. It's a great read. I've read it. I love how you go with your approach to teaching folks. So definitely
Thanks.
check that out. If Josh hasn't dropped his book, I'll drop the link to it at some point. Um, but the other stream we did was because you only had time to talk about a few things the first time you had an appointment. So we ended up doing an ESLint rule, but it was a very basic one. I think what we did was, and again, this was an existing rule, but it was just to go through the concepts of this, and it was converting lets to const if it made sense, because like in some cases you can't convert let to const because depending on where it's used. So that was I don't want to say simpler, but it was definitely a little more trivial than something like preferring destructuring, which I thought would be interesting to take a peek at. So that's why I picked that. If somebody has another suggestion of something somewhat complex, we could maybe tackle that. But if not, I thought this would be a fun one to recreate.
Definitely.
And
Thank
for
you.
context, I've never actually seen the code to do the destructuring in ESLint, so this is like fresh eyes for me. It's
There's a, as you alluded to, there is a standard ESLint plugin React that I highly recommend anyone writing React code use. There's also an ESLint plugin JSX accessibility. Interesting, I always thought that one refers to React, the other accessibility, but anyway. So yeah, that rule is about 300 or so, a little more lines long. I just linked to the docs in the chat. We're probably not going to get up to quite that much space. I think we can just write a general rule that for any function that takes in a single prop or single parameter, if the first line of code is like a const something equals parameter dot something, then we can complain about it. Does that sound reasonable to you?
yeah, and I'm just looking at my existing project, and it has prettier in it, but I actually don't think it has ESLint, believe it or not.
Oh no!
This is my other project does, so it's not a big deal.
Phew.
For context, my blog or my website, it's currently using 11D, which is amazing. I happen to be reading up, because I work on the frameworks team at Netlify. I was reading up on the Astro content collections and their type safe. So one Friday, I got nerd sniped, and I was like, oh, let's take a peek at it. And then all of a sudden I was recreating my blog in Astro. So, but I used NX, and I'm surprised it didn't bring in ESLint. But anyways, it's no matter, because my other one does have ESLint, so we're good that way. And watch me put my foot in my mouth and realize that it doesn't have ESLint either. But let's see here. Anyways, we can definitely get started. Really, I've got to have ESLint somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I have at least one project. But worst case, we could always just create a fresh project. But or you know what? I could probably just add ESLint to my project, and then that way we won't have any rules to begin with.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do that then, I guess. Should I go ahead and share my screen, or what should we get up to?
As you may recall, you are already sharing your screen, and have been the whole time.
Okay. It's been on the screen. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the live stream. I saw your screenshot, but I thought you meant that was something else. So. Okay. Cool.
Well, thank God we didn't open up our discussions on insert tense political topic here.
Yeah.
Cool.
The Earth is flat. Everybody agree with me? No. Okay. Cool,
all right.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
So you may recall from our last pairing that an ESLint rule consists of two parts. Do you remember, by the way, what those two parts are while we set up ESLint?
Well, there's the name of the rule, and then there's the code associated to, I guess. I guess I'm trying to remember. It's been a while, but I imagine it's like a JS object with a key value pair where the value is the function or something similar to that.
Yes. Yep. It's got the metadata, and then it's also got a create function that returns that key value object that maps from whenever you see a node in the tree that looks like this, do some logic. And I just realized we haven't even set up ESLint yet, so perhaps I'm bringing this up a little early.
It's all good. Cool. Okay, so come back here. I'm still surprised at ESLint. This could explain some things. I was like, why is my blog not applying certain rules? But if we come to, let me go to my existing blog and just look in the package JSON.
Mysteries solved.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't have ESLint. This is okay. Well, anyways, let's just install it. So uh, ESLint, and I don't need to. You don't want me to install any plugins or anything, right? We're just gonna go bare bones for now.
Just bare bones for now.
Okay, cool. So let's just take a sec, and while it's installing, we're not gonna look at this today, but you were mentioning that the ESLint configuration file is changing. It's not stable at the moment, but there's, I don't know if you want to speak a bit about the new format.
Yeah, I was just getting up the links to the doc. So the current ESLint format is supported. It's going to stay supported for quite some time. But there is a new config format called flat config that they're working on that's pretty close to being not experimental. It's still experimental. I just posted it in the chat. It solves a few issues with the current config file format. One is that it's actually kind of hard to import local rules, and it can be confusing to people how to import plugins. So the new config file format, the flat config, you can't have nested configs, and it's always JavaScript, so you can import or require from other packages. So it's no longer doing this weird kind of implicit extends with the plugins array. It's much more clear. So I'm really excited about it.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
But for now, we got modular exports, and just to make sure this works, could you enable like the no var rule just to see what happens?
Yep. Okay, so I'm actually trying. I got to add a rule section, right?
Yep, rules, and then that's a key value pair. Oh, that's an example. That one would work too, honestly. Either way.
Okay, no, yeah, we can do no console, sure. Okay, and 0 means off by default, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all right. And this is a question I had, like, what is the preference? Because like there was 0 or 1, there's off, there's on.
Yeah, I don't know why people like the numbers. It's a little less code, but I always found it kind of confusing. 1 is warning, 2 is error. I always use the strings personally.
Okay. Well, I mean, I get the 0, 1 part, but it's I guess from legibility standpoint. So, okay, so let's just take a peek at this. So we have this enabled now. So I'm just gonna go to my short codes. This is where I.
Oh, I will note you'll want to put error rather than on, actually.
Oh yeah, true. Thank you. Okay. Okay, and then so now if I come here, I already see my file is red.
That's good.
Right?
It's a good sign. Why is it red?
Oh no, maybe that's something else. Oh, I think it formatted or something. Const path, the keyword const is reserved. Okay, I don't know why it's doing that. Interesting.
Is that who's telling you this? What extension is saying this? Oh, ESLint. So
okay, that's because we haven't enabled ES6 by default or greater.
That is correct. And oh man, you know what? I am trying to figure out how to do this.
Is that environments or is that under not compiler? Is that under parser? I can't remember. There's so many sections in here.
Honestly, I'm just looking this up. I'm so used to configuring ESLint with TypeScript. Okay, here you go. I'll post the Stack Overflow in the chat.
I'm using Copilot. It told me ECMA script version 6.
That should work.
I mean,
let's see what happens.
Obviously, that it could be greater than that, but we can start off with that. Yeah, I fixed it.
Nice. Good job, Copilot.
Copilot. Speaking of automation, Copilot. Obviously, that version could be higher, but we'll just leave it at 6 for now, I guess. Okay, so it says no console. So, okay, parsing error. Okay. There's a bunch of things because we don't have the recommended installed. I guess there's a.
It's because it doesn't recognize what function is after the async keyword because it doesn't know what async is. So I'd say put ES 2021 or something like this for the ECMA script version.
Yeah. This is a good exercise though because like a lot of times when because a lot of times what's it not like? Okay, there we go.
Nice.
And we come back here and we're all good. Okay, now if we just look here, okay, so we have the rule enabled and it's giving the error. But I like that we went through that exercise because think a lot of times, like when people like install a framework to work on something, all these things are configured already. So I think it's kind
Yeah.
of nice just showing, because this is stuff you typically don't need to configure unless you're adding or modifying rules. I think, like
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say I would say most people would typically just go like, if they install Next.js or Astro or Remix, they just go with whatever the rules are there and then just go. So
Yeah.
I just
I would
think
take
that
that one
shows.
step further. I'd say that most people just never look at their ESLint file. And if they do look at it, it's to turn something off because they're mad at it. Like I'm trying to find, there's a discussion or issue I started on Next.js where the create next app dash dash TypeScript setting does not enable the recommended TypeScript ESLint rules
Okay.
in your ESLint config. So most people who create a new Next.js app, unless they explicitly go in and futz with their ESLint config, are not using the rules we recommend everyone use, which is honestly really upsetting. And I would like it to be fixed. And my browser's freezing, otherwise I'd paste it in the chat. Here we go. Here we go.
There we go. That's all good. It's a stream. Something is always imperfect about a stream, and it's kind of actually one of the reasons why I like it. So,
Yeah.
I haven't. I don't know about yourself. Have you done YouTube content aside from like putting up your recordings, or not really? Or
no, I will this year actually. Gonna do a bunch of videos corresponding to the learning TypeScript stuff for like free, entry into the book. But you do that a lot now.
Yeah. Well, I mainly stream still. I haven't really published any like actual YouTube content. It's always been uploads, but I do plan on trying to do something at some point. It's just working full time. Because like I know there's people that are dedicated, like their job is content creation, so clearly they'll be doing that. But just with like doing regular engineering work, I find pockets of time to do the stream. So like for example, like today when we're streaming, I took a later lunch, and it'll be a little longer, but I'll just work a little later. And that's kind of what I do with my own stream too. Like tomorrow, I move my lunch to there, and it's an extended lunch, and then I just work a little later. But
Sure.
It's to make actual content that isn't the live streams. It takes more time, and there's editing. Like there's like I think you have a podcast too. Like I have one too, but it's by no means super popular. But I've been kind of reusing content from streams where there's good conversations, and I just edit them and stuff. But it just takes a lot of time. So it's not that I don't want to do it. It's just
who has the time? Yeah. No, I feel you.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. No,
Okay.
I feel like I'm ready to get started writing a custom local rule with ESLint. Do you feel ready?
Yeah, I am ready to be thrown into it. So let's
awesome.
do this.
So one of the reason why I brought up the new flat ESLint config is that it makes it easier to import local ESLint rules. Hi, Bryce Guy. This current version of the config you're using needs a plugin to be able to support a new ESLint rule on your local file disk or like in your local project. So I just posted in the chat.
Okay.
It's called eslint-plugin-local-rules, a plugin for ESLint that allows you to use project-specific rules. Shockingly, it only has 97 stars on GitHub. This is offensive to me. This project should have way more stars because it is a great project that's enabled so many nice things in local development. Alas.
Awesome. Don't mind me, I'm just creating a new branch. I just realized I was on my main branch, so.
Oh no.
It's no big deal. It's just I just figured if might as well be up to date, and then. All right, cool. There we go. We're back to where we were. Okay, cool.
Cool.
Okay, so I probably need a bit of a refresher. So like if we're creating a custom ESLint rule within the project. Obviously, I'm going to need to create a file somewhere. Is there a particular folder it has to be in, or can it be literally anywhere? Or
literally anywhere. If someone in the chat wants to suggest a standard for us, that would work for me. I might suggest putting it in like source/rules or something like that.
Yeah. All right. Prefer-destruct. And I probably know the answer to this, but I imagine you can create the ESLint rules in TypeScript or JavaScript, or do they have to be in JavaScript? Even the TypeScript ones, out of curiosity.
They have to be in JavaScript because it's an npm package, importing, reading, etc., just like any other.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Cool. I guess like obviously we're both fans of TypeScript, and you work on the TypeScript ESLint project. When you write the ESLint rules in JavaScript, then do you use JSDoc to still get that TypeScript goodness, or how do you approach it?
I guess I should have answered. They have to be run or imported from JS files, but you can write them in TypeScript,
Okay,
and then we
okay.
transpile to .js.
Okay, yeah, got you. That makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool, cool. All right. So we got the file here. I'm in. I don't think. Yeah, I think this is my 11 project, so I think I have to do module exports. But okay, so I guess first thing we want to get started. So we want to create a new rule. I imagine I need to import something so I can at least have access to the tools that ESLint has, right?
You actually don't. In our last stream, I showed you using the TypeScript ESLint tooling, which makes it a little easier, but you don't actually need to use that stuff, especially if the rule doesn't use TypeScripty things. So could I actually ask you to visit the link I posted in the chat, eslint-plugin-local-rules? Because that has a very good getting started, like very minimal ESLint rule.
Okay, cool. Let me just drag that in over here.
Boom.
Okay. So, what's the rule called?
Oh, just scroll down on the README. It's got it there.
Oh, okay, okay, cool. Oh, I see. It's that easy. Okay, yeah. This one here.
Yep, and everything from module.exports through the end of that block. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I guess we don't need the use strict because modern JavaScript.
Yes, and just rename line 2 or the string on line 2 from that to prefer-destruct.
Not prefere. It's not Italian. Prefere.
Mamma mia. Okay.
Yeah. Now I want to talk like the Super Mario Brothers.
I know, right?
And
the movie looks really good, by the way. I'm very excited about it.
It does. I've heard really good things about Jack Black as Bowser.
Oh.
So
Awesome.
he's just amazing.
Strong agree.
So all right.
But cool.
So,
All right.
Prefers. Yes. Sure. Okay.
Cool.
Right. Okay. So yeah, let's talk. I know we've gone through this before. It's just like it was last year, so I'm a little wishy-washy. So the category and stuff, is possible errors just a random category they created, or is this an actual category of ESLint rules?
I actually don't know why that's there. I think it's a documentation generation thing. You can probably just remove category and recommended.
Okay. Cool.
I think it would be best practices as Copilot suggested. Good for you, Copilot, but this is fine.
All right, and the schema, anything we need to do there in the array?
Nope. In theory, if we wanted to add options to the rule, we could, like the ability to pass in options from the ESLint config, but I don't think we're going to need to do that. That's boring.
Gotcha. Cool, cool. All right. Okay, so this, I imagine, is where the actual work gets done.
Yes.
So, I guess this is uniform. The rule has a create method in the object, and it receives a context which that allows you to have access to the AST and to be able to walk the nodes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the deal? Okay.
Yep. The context has a whole bunch of APIs on it that you might want to use. Like .report is what actually tells ESLint to create the complaints, the reports, as we would call it.
What you would see in like in your terminal, or like I use error lens where it puts the error beside it. So, but that's where that would be coming from. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And this returned object, return a line 10 and then the object after it, that's a key value pair. Each key in that object is a query on your source code, your AST. Pardon me. In this example, we're saying whenever I see an identifier, which is like a variable, like any name, then I'm going to run this function given that node in the tree, given that particular identifier. And here, this dummy rule, this one that no one should ever enable in any code base, just says, whenever I see an identifier, report complaint.
Mm. I dropped the AST Explorer in there, even though it's not
Yes,
something I do in my day to day. I love this tool. It's super. I find it's super handy.
definitely.
I just want to pop it up for a sec here, just if I know Joy of UI has seen it before, but yeah, I like this. So, uh, do you think it's worth talking through like this being broken down right now, or should we just continue with the rule? Or
Yeah, maybe like a quick overview of what an AST is, just showing off this thing. That's probably good.
okay, okay. So,
Do you want to give this a go, or do you want me to?
you can go ahead. I mean, I'm happy to attempt it, but I know you work in this day to day, so
Sure.
uh, yeah,
Yeah, so an AST, or abstract syntax tree, is a representation of your source code. On the left in this ASTExplorer.net site, we have source code, just text. And on the right, we see this nice little visualization of how it is stored as an AST in a lot of programs. The reason why it's called a tree, or AST tree, is because it's a kind of like a JSON or plain old JavaScript object representation of your code. At the very root, you have what's called a program, and then in the program, there's a body, which is an array of things. Here we have two things in the body: a variable declaration, let tips, and a function print tips. And we can keep going down inside the variable declaration. There's a list of things, and then names, and then values, and so on. So this
yeah,
tree structure, oh yes, please do. You can expand, and it shows you this nice little syntax highlighting and all the properties. It's really nice. And this is what we work with in ESLint land. Every ESLint rule takes in a representation of the source code, this AST, queries the AST in some way, looks to see if there's some code smell it doesn't like, and may or may not eventually context.reports to let you know, we don't like this, you should do something else.
yeah, and to give this in practical terms, so like for this particular example, so the array here, it's let tips equals an array of strings. So like when we did the previous stream where we're like, well, let's use const instead, we can already tell, like for example here in the variable declaration that I've expanded here, we can see that the kind is let. So right away we have an indicator where we can actually apply the rule and say, oh hey, your kind is let, that's no good, give an error. Or if we want to get more advanced, we could do an auto fixing rule, which is what I believe we did last time. I'll have to find that stream and drop it in the chat. But yeah, uh, you know, I think one thing that I found about ASTs, and again, this is not something I do day to day. Like I understand pretty much what's going on, but I like how it's actually more approachable than you think.
Yeah.
Like, because like you hear the word AST or somebody say abstract syntax trees, and then all of a sudden maybe you're just like nodding, like yes, indeed, or like I have no idea what you're talking about. But it's like when things in programming can seem scary, but they're not really. Once you actually look at it, it's not as intimidating as it might be. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't intimidating for people, but I just thought I found it's less intimidating than I thought it was. Is basically what
Yeah.
I'm getting at.
Almost everything in programming is more intimidating in effect. Like people get more intimidated than they should, but in actuality is much less intimidating than people think. This is a very good
Yeah.
example of that, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I'm gonna bring us back to the code here. So speaking of that node, like we just saw a node in AST Explorer. That's essentially kind of like what we're gonna see here, right?
Yep. Yeah, that node is
Okay.
this specific little thing in your source file that we're complaining about.
Okay. So so we have the reporting part, which is just like prefer destructuring. It's difficult to say sometimes, over accessing properties directly. But that's literally doing nothing right now. All it's gonna do is it's gonna just spew out that error for literally everything, right?
Yeah, this will spew the error every time it sees an identifier. So any variable name or like parameter reference, anything that identifies a value by name, that's going to complain about. So that's going to give you a lot of
Okay.
complaints.
Yeah. So just like I know we haven't uh, done anything for the actual rule yet, but I was wondering if we could enable it just so we could see it, kind of going all over the place saying no, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no.
Yeah, if you go back
Okay.
to the eslint plugin local rules readme, it'll show you how to enable a local rule with it back in your browser.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, in this current today's ESLint, it's not quite as simple
Okay.
as I'd like it to be.
Okay, so this is a plugin, but is that are custom rules, do they end up becoming plugins, or do you reference them directly in the rules?
So the way ESLint works now is if you want to load in new rules, you have to extend a plugin or use a plugin.
Okay.
And this is a plugin that, instead of coming with its own rules, reads from your disk to provide rules.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. This plugin itself, that name means it's local rules. Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's grab that and let's come back here and that there. Okay, so right away it knows to look on disk at this point.
Yes.
Is that correct?
And
okay.
Yes, and it knows to look at. So in the README under usage, it mentions it looks for a very specific file in your folder or in your project. It looks for one of two files: /eslint-local-rules.js or an index file under a folder that name. So you'll want to make a new file, basically.
Okay, so code, and it's okay if it's under src.
I believe it is not okay, actually.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, and it's eslint. What was it?
/ so just no dot. eslint-local-rules.js kebab case.
Okay. The name of the plugin.
Yeah.
This would have been easier. Okay.
But there's no plugin in there. It's just ESLint local rules. And now you see why I'm so excited about the new ESLint config format.
Yeah. Okay, so we got that file here. I'm just going to save it. Okay.
Cool.
And so this is the local rules now. So I imagine I import the rule I've created, even though we haven't really done much with it yet in here? Is that how it works?
Yep. And actually, I slightly misled you. You can just copy and paste everything from the prefer-destruct file into this one.
Okay.
The way that this local rules file is supposed to have things is it exports an object with keys as the rule names and values as the rules themselves.
All right, so let's just take this whole thing in here, like you said.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, sorry. My phone just destroyed everything, so I can't.
Oh, that's okay.
There. Okay, sorry.
Okay,
triggered
rules
Google
here now. And so I'll close this file because we don't need that. So if I come in here right away, I can just, thank you, Copilot. But if I save this now, it's going to go show errors everywhere for that rule for any variable. Is that right?
Yes, almost. It's local rules / whatever the rule name is.
Okay, local -rules.
Yep. And now if you restart ESLint or run ESLint on the command line, I'm betting it'll start complaining. I really hope.
Okay. All right, so we'll give it a second here. I just want to make sure. Okay, it's eslint-local-rules.js, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's right, local-rules/prefer-destruct. That's right. Okay, so I don't see it kicking in yet. I'm not sure why. Do you want me to close my editor and come back in?
No, because you already restarted the ESLint server, that shouldn't change anything. Try running npx eslint dot on your command line. Oh. You got to install it.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so we need... Okay, well... Okay, no, this is great that we did this because it's also guiding me what I need to do now. So let's just copy paste. Okay, that's going to install, and there we go. Okay.
Love it. Look how all that red.
Yeah.
Oof.
Look at
it's
me,
like
Mom.
what I code.
We're making ESLint rules. I broke my whole project. Okay. And I know this is silly right now, but this actually just shows like the power of ESLint. It's touching literally every variable right now. So I think that's kind of cool, honestly. This is obviously not what we wanted to do. So if we come back to the actual rule, even the rule itself is giving. Okay, I'm gonna disable that temporarily. Okay, just so we can actually focus in here. Not that I don't like red squigglies, but okay. So we've seen it work. We've got the custom rule. It's running in the local rules. So now let's get down to business, I guess. So
And defeat the hunt.
okay, so we have the node here, and are there types for eslint to get it to kick in? I'm not in a TypeScript project though, but it should get picked up in VS Code, shouldn't it? Regardless. Install the types.
There are types. However, there's no way to indicate. You're not right now indicating that this file is an eslint file. You could use JS docs to indicate that. However, I've never actually done it. What I've always done is use the TypeScript eslint rule creator, which then does the typing stuff for you.
Okay, I see it actually just kicked in. Maybe it just took a second. I've got the properties and the methods here now. Okay, so what we want to do is, let's do this first. Let's create a variable. I'm gonna create a new file actually, just to make things better. Nick and Josh.js.
Yeah.
And then in here, I'm just gonna have const equals. I'm just gonna say Nick. I don't know. I'm doing super silly stuff here. All right, and this is a terrible object. Sorry, folks, but then I just want to say like names.nick, and do like console.log names.nick, and I'm gonna do it for Josh too. And I'm just gonna leave it like that. And this once our rule is working, it should say that we need to destructure this. Okay. And I'm gonna disable the console log for now, just like I'm picking all the wrong things today. Okay, so there's our file, and we're all good. Okay, so I wonder if I bring it side by side, just so we can see it in action.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Okay, so we've got an object. It's got properties, so it can be destructured. We're not destructuring it right now. So let's get to the actual rule. So I have a node. So what am I looking for first here?
Well, the first step in writing the eslint rule, custom one, is to figure out what you want to query for. So right now you're querying for all identifiers, which is probably not what you want. But instead, you could query for, let's say, anything that looks like names.nick. And I'm going to forget everything I know about AST names and say that I don't remember what that looks like in the AST, what you'd query for. So let's plop that Nick and Josh file into astexplorer.net and see what it tells us.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. No, that's okay. This is great because we're using the tool to learn. So this is great.
Yeah.
And actually, if I were to create a custom rule that I actually needed, because this one already exists that we're going to build, I think this would be a great way to start approaching it actually. So, okay. Yeah. So, all right. So we've got our object here. I'm going to expand it. So we have this variable declaration. It's const, which is this here. And then if I open it, it's saying 0 to 50. So the 0 to 50 here is that the range of characters in the file? Is that what that is?
Yep. Okay. File.slice 0, 50, or is it substring? I can never remember. Is names.
Okay. So we've got a type. It's a variable declarator. So we definitely want to make sure the type is a variable declarator.
Well, wait. Hang on. I think we're going down a different path than I was expecting. My understanding of the rule is that whenever we see something like names.nick, we want to say, actually, what you should have done is const nick with the curlies around it.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, it's not the object itself. Yeah. Sorry, good call.
Yes.
Okay. So
no, this is a really common thing that people do. They look for the place that sources the information, but it's often the usage that we want to complain about.
Okay. So like even here already, I don't want the console log. I want what's in here. So if I highlight that,
Yes.
okay. And then I open that. Okay, so identifier Nick, and then this one's names. Okay, so yeah, I guess my first question here is, I guess we need to look for a member expression then, the node dot. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so let's come back to VS Code. So I'm gonna.
So you want one line up to change from identifier to member expression on line 11.
Oh, okay. I see. It's. I don't even need to do if node dot type. It's okay.
It's like a CSS query or selector.
Okay, is that right?
And now if you were to rerun the rule, actually, I would highly recommend just like restart the ESLint server now to see what happens. It should start complaining on your left file about names.nick and names.josh. Or maybe it won't.
I just want member expression node any.
What happens if you run it in the command line?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's complaining. I'm not sure why it didn't kick in for my file. Is it because... Oh, I'm not looking in the source file folder. I have to do this, right?
Dot. So this is something I only really internally clicked on recently. When you say npx eslint dot, you are providing a path to a folder as a command line argument to eslint. That's what eslint takes in. Any number of dash flags, and then also any number of files or directories. So that's a file or directory you're passing in. And dot is the current file or directory. So it should include source. So I'd say eslint source / Nick and Josh JS and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, it's because it's complaining about something else, but
yeah, we can ignore those.
Nick and Josh. Okay, so it's actually passing. Okay, so that's interesting. So I guess I just want to see if it runs in here.
Yeah. I don't know.
I do this a lot when I want to. Okay, so it's not even hitting. It's not hitting that. Oh wait, we disabled the rule. That's why.
Oh my heavens! Oh,
sorry. That's classic me. Classic me. Okay,
got all
so
scared.
Everything does work, folks. We return to regular programming, folks. Okay. So this is great. It's working, and we can see it's not doing what it was doing before, where it was lighting up with squigglies everywhere. It's literally just on member expressions now. Okay, cool.
So that's fun. But this is really interesting. So, it's complaining on three additional types of code that I wouldn't have expected it to.
Console.log. So like, do we need to say in the member expression as if the node is not console, if the node's console, just return?
We could, but what if you do like myfancylogger.log? Or what if you do like context.reports? Because that's a different API and it's also getting the complaints. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So basically we don't want to have this deny list of things because that'll just explode.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right. Okay, so I'm just curious here. If I look here, like we could literally just say for names right now, but that's too laser focused as well, because once we do get the rule working, it's going to be like, yeah, you have to prefer destructuring, but only when your object is names.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'll give you what I would suggest doing things, but I'll also note that this brings up a really, really interesting, I think, I'm trying to find a good discussion link for this, type of theology around lint rules. You don't want to use deny lists or block lists because then you keep having to add to them. But we also don't like using allow lists or safe lists because then it doesn't target enough stuff. So most of the time we have told people who ask for, can I enable a deny list by name, or can I ignore specifically this thing for these rules? We don't like that because it's almost always the wrong thing. What you instead want to check is the behavior. And here we want to say the behavior we care about is, well, if it's not being used as a function and if we're not assigning to it. So we should probably check to see what the parent of the member expression is. And I'd say maybe let's just only look at member expressions that, like, I don't know, are like inside a variable, like const name, const nick equals names.nick, like that kind of code.
Okay. Okay, so we do if node. Okay, we can you repeat what you said there again?
Sure. I'll actually ask you for a comment here. Just can you comment const nick equals names dot nick? Like in the code comment?
Yeah. This part here, get rid of that, you mean?
In your rule file, just so we can see it for reference, add a comment
okay.
that just says const nick equals names dot nick. I'm sorry, when I said rules file, I meant eslint-local-rules.js. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, no, it's okay, it's okay. Okay, in here. Just add a comment up top at the end. Or...
Maybe around line 12.
Yeah, okay, cool. Const names.
Yeah. Name equals names.nick?
Const nick names equals nick. Yeah. As an example, right?
Or const nick equals names.nick. I don't know why. I'm getting tired and I'm starting to overheat and I'm finding it difficult to communicate with you as a human. I don't know how you're feeling right now.
I'm okay, but I was at the I might not be on my top of my game right now. I was at the dentist this morning, and so half my face is finally defrosted.
Oh my god.
So maybe that's why I wasn't cluing into what you're saying. But anyways, okay. So we have an example here. Like we don't want to do this, is what we're saying. So this is what this is to prevent.
Yeah, so that is we're going to try to limit the rule exactly to only prevent that specific case. So let's again forget everything we know about ASTs. So we can check specifically in the query for whatever that structure is where there is a member expression child, or rather in the query, like a CSS selector, you can check like whatever that's called space member expression as a key.
Yeah, exactly. I see what you mean. So like, we want to disallow setting a variable that is the property of the parent object dot that property. Like if those names match, then we're like, oh yeah, what are you doing? You got to destruct.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And the syntax to do that is actually surprisingly clean. It's the same as like a CSS query. So you could do like a variable. I'm going to type this out in the chat actually. By the way, while I'm typing this out, can you do me a huge favor and just sing out to the tune of the Mulan song what Joy of You I just said?
I don't know the tune, but I will just sing it. You must be swift as an eslint rule.
That's okay. I release you.
All I remember from Mulan is Eddie Murphy as what was the skinny dragon? Mushu, yeah. Mushu. Anyways. There we go. Welcome to this stream is now welcome to The Voice. Okay.
And anyone else named Nick also has to sing? Yes. Thank you. But cool. So I just posted in the chat what you can do as the ES query. So it's called the ES query, ECMAScript query. So you can search for any member expression that's a child of a variable declarator using the code that I just posted in the chat.
What did that do? I copied it, but it copied way more than I wanted.
No.
All right. Yeah, let's do that again. Okay, yeah, it's just the starter there. Okay. Okay, so this is what it... Okay.
Yep, and you can replace line 11 with that.
Okay, gotcha. And...
Missing a quote.
Getting that? Okay.
Like we wanted that. We wanted variable declarator.
Oh, okay. So the actual name is the expression. Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
And this trips up a lot of people with the ESLint rules. They look at this and go like, why is there this string? Well, object keys can be strings with the explicit quotes if you want. You just almost never need to unless there's a space in there.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay, so we're saying find a variable declarator. So like, for example, Nick, and let's look at its member expression, which is the right side of the equals. Is that correct?
We're saying any. It's just like CSS for any folks in here who love CSS the way I do. Anything where it's this thing and an immediate child is the other thing. So any variable declarator that has an immediate child member expression.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so that this basically translates to names.nic, kind of.
So yes, so
Or
in your const nick equals names.nick,
yeah.
the part from the first nick until the end of that is a variable declarator, which is not
Okay,
to
it's
be
the whole thing.
confused with
Okay.
the list of them. Yeah. So we're saying
Yeah, okay.
nick equals names.nick has the child names.nick, and that's what we're
Yeah,
looking
and
at.
names.nic is the member expression.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. My face is continuing to thaw from the dentist, so I believe it probably froze half my brain. So I'm normally a little more on the ball. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, so we're just basically saying this again gets back to I like that there's this way to declare it versus like if it's this, do this, and then you have like some general like like the create is no longer just this general thing. It's just got okay, if this matches this particular key in the object, then do the function.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
All right, cool. All right, so we've got that, so we know we're in the right place at this point. And so now what we want to check is we want to see if the variable declarator is if it matches the parent variable declarator's name dot the current variable declarator. Is that right?
What you just said was a lot of words, and I think that's all correct, but I might have lost track in the middle. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Basically, I'm saying like, so this is the variable declarator here,
Yeah.
and this is the member expression. So we're saying what we want to check now is if the variable declarator of the parent, which is names, has a property that is the name of the variable declarator that we're currently in. We want it, that allows us to say, okay, Nick and Nick here, that we don't want to do that, so we've got an error out now, or potentially auto fix it. Maybe
Yes.
we'll save the auto fix for later, maybe. But
Yeah, if we have time and energy.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to just quickly shout out something in the chat that Joey of UI is asking. Is this the TS or TypeScript AST? We're working on the ECMAScript or ES tree. That's what ESLint parses and produces natively. TypeScript, like the programming tooling TypeScript, has its own AST format, which is different in some ways. Like they name things differently, like property access expression instead of member expression. So they're not compatible. One of the things that the tooling that I work on, TypeScript ESLint, does is it takes in TypeScript code and parses it into a different format from what TypeScript would. It parses it into a format understandable by ESLint, which we call TSES tree, the TypeScript ECMAScript tree.
yes, true.
We love naming.
Okay.
So yeah, just
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
side note there.
Okay, cool. Gotcha. No, it's all good. Naming is hard and naming is important. So.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yes.
right, cool. We got. I just saw on Twitter, Delamora, one of my mutuals on Twitter, is saying, "I wish I was at home to be able to watch it. Do you plan on doing it more often?" Can respond to her later. She tagged you too, Josh, so you can probably say, "Hey, you stream all the time," so that's probably it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the node. At this point, the node is going to be the member expression, right? Because we're like our whole thing says go get like you said, like a CSS expression, like a selector. The node at this point should be the member expression, correct?
Yes, here the node is the member expression, not the variable declarator. So you could do node.parents to access the variable declarator.
Yeah, okay. And this is nice. Ironically, I'm not destructuring the parent, but parent declarator. Parent var declarator. Okay.
Yeah, the standard, like in the standard that I adhere to in TypeScript ESLint is to call it const parent equals node.parent, and I think it's really funny that you're avoiding it because, you know, that's what the node would complain about in the rule.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's appease our rule as we're building it out.
Yes.
Actually.
This is a learning. Always appease ESLint. Never question the rules. Never reconfigure them to your needs. Just appease it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, so we've got the parent, and so basically, yeah, if the parent type is not equal to a variable declarator return, I guess that's possible, right?
Nope, that's literally impossible. Because we
Okay.
just said variable declarator member expression. The parent is always a variable declarator. GitHub
Yeah,
Copilot
okay.
is wrong. Oh no.
Okay, so Skynet is not going to kill us, so all right, we're safe for another day. Okay, so at this point, we want to get is it the name of the node, which would be the actual variable name, or?
Yeah, and I would suggest looking at astexplorer.net because I forget
Okay,
what
yeah,
it
yeah.
is. It's like parent.id.text or something like that.
All right, so that's the member expression, and let's open that. That's names. Yeah, it's just parent.names, sorry. And that's not what we want. We want the identifier. So, okay, so we want the Okay, the parent name is names. Um, that's fine, but we actually want this. We want to match this against our variable declarator, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, so
I would suggest changing the AST Explorer code that you have in there to be the code we're actually looking at. Const names equals, or const nick
oh yeah,
equals names.nick.
Sorry, I forgot we changed it up.
It's hard to say.
That's still the same, is it? That's
Const
the same
nick
code,
equals
isn't it?
name.nick.
Yeah. That's the same. Names equals Nick. Yeah. No, that's the same code here.
But I thought we were trying to lint against the commented out line on your rule file, line 12. Const nick equals names.nick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what. Yeah, no, that's what we're trying to match against.
So I'd say paste that
is.
into ASTExplorer.net so that you can see what the AST looks like for that specific thing.
Sorry. Jeez, remind me not to go to the dentist the day of the stream. Okay, all right, let's look at this. Okay, so that's our variable declarator Nick, and then we got names.nick, and then I wanted to select the whole thing up. Okay, so there's the member expression. So we don't care what the names are. We don't care that the name of the parent is names. What we actually care about
is the property.
Yeah. So we want to
node.property dot something.
Yeah.
Name.
If parent.name sorry, node dot parent.property, sorry.
It was node.property.name. Because member expression is the node, and then it has a property, and that property has a name.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if that equals, or if not,
you and your ligature font, look at that.
Yeah. Okay. So what's it not like? Okay, it's talking about the destructuring still, but that's fine. Okay, so we have the parent. So if the parent name, so like, for example, parent.name is Nick, node.property is Nick. That should be right. So if those aren't equal, we should return. Is that correct?
That's almost correct. You're so close.
More than one property.
This is one of the reasons why I find it difficult to talk about AST things, because the terms we use in English to describe code in general are the same terms it uses. So when I'm trying to tell you that the property is fine, what property am I talking about? Your code is almost perfect.
Okay, so wait,
it's just you need to do. It's just parent.id.name because the parent ID is how it calls the identifier.
Oh, is it parent ID? Where do I don't see an ID in. Oh, here. Okay, I see what you mean. ID. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So if the parent.id.name is Nick and the node.property.name is Nick, that's when we want to continue. Otherwise, just return. So, okay. So that makes sense. So, and we can test this because if I do, okay. So So it shouldn't complain about this.
Mm-hmm.
It should complain about when I do this.
Yep.
Which it is. Okay, but why is it complaining about this one?
You have to restart ESLint because it reads the rule once and doesn't reload when the file reloads. Just a little annoying.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that's right. And also to be clear about restarting the ESLint server, this is really only when you're developing rules. It's not like if somebody who's using the rule like in their project, they wouldn't need to do this.
Yes.
But it's a good reminder because it almost makes me think like I feel like there could be a VS Code extension or even just some kind of daemon that runs where like if you're like, for example, we know we're creating local rules right now, so watch the local rules file. As soon as it changes, restart the ESLint server. That's just a little side note. Could be an interesting project for anybody, but
I really like that, actually. That's a really good idea. I think in the new ESLint config, it would be something that could be supported because they just require from files. So yeah, I don't know. It would be hard to do because you'd have to figure out all the files that get included because it's all wishy-washy magical. But I really like that. I really like that idea because this is a pain in the butt when you're developing rules.
Well, that's the thing, because like for me at first I thought I was doing something incorrectly until you obviously told me restart the ESLint server. And I feel like it's the kind of thing like if I was doing this late at night, you know, I'd be like, why is this not working? Why is this not working? Oh, yes, I did not restart the ESLint server. Okay, but this is cool. So a couple things. One, I did not read this through properly. So it's like you said, it's parent.id.name. That was just me not reading through it properly. Had the idea, the concept, like you said, but not perfect. But okay, but I like this. Already we can see it's allowing this because, and that could be a separate rule. I feel like that would be more complex.
Oh yeah.
Because like this one, it's pretty obvious that like we can compare, you know, and that could be one part of the rule, but for this here, we're not assigning this to anything. It's being passed in as an argument, not a parameter. Yes, I read your book.
Yes. There's one thing I've accomplished in life. It's you knowing argument versus parameter. What is the difference, by the way, between an argument and parameter? A parameter is declared and an argument is given.
Yeah, there we go. I know Josh is super excited, but like honestly, and I'm not the only one because when I mentioned this, I tweeted it out or I tooted it, and people are like, today I learned, because like I myself, I always interchange them, like, okay, yeah, and whenever I'd be talking about them, I'd be like, okay, you know, passing the argument or parameter, you know, like, and then I'd be like, I guess there's no difference. So anyways, just wanted to call that out just to prove that I've read your book.
Thank you.
But
things that are relevant almost always only when you're working on ASTs.
Yeah. But like for the more complex rule, like this would be a lot more difficult because yes, we could say like, I guess the check could be like, find the variable declarator if its type is object and you're accessing a property. You could say, don't do that. You need to destructure, something along those lines. But
yeah.
But already I'm super happy that we have this working. So like, but it also brings up the thing where like I could do this. I could just go nick2, and it's not going to complain.
Yeah.
So already I feel like my rule is no good. It's not bad, but I'm like, I want to avoid completely accessing the property like that. So I think if the parent ID name, I guess all we need to say is how would we do this? I guess as long as if the node is of type object and you're accessing a property, that's when we should fail, no?
So yeah, there are two ways you could go about this, and I love that you're bringing it up. This is awesome stuff. One is, you could check that the node is an object, that it's like some typed object, rather than, I don't even know what else you'd care, like a string or a number or something. And in order to do that, you'd need a type checker, such as the one provided by TypeScript. So we could make this a TypeScript ESLint powered rule. Um,
Okay.
that's one option. Another is you could just do it based on the syntax and not care, and
Okay.
just say based on the usage of it, based off of whether it's inside a variable. Because like this is probably fine. I think it's
Yeah.
okay to leave this as is. The one note that I would have is sometimes how do I say this? Sometimes the keys are computed, so the member expression um, we want to. I think we'll want to make sure that the variable declarator's ID is an identifier and the member expression's property is an identifier, because you could do variables with names, or like you could do destructures for variable declarators, and that gets confusing. And actually, I don't remember if that's allowed
Yeah.
in AST.
And yeah, no, you're totally right. The variable declarator could also be, oh no,
Oh
it
yeah,
wouldn't be a variable. It wouldn't be a variable declarator at that point. Like for example, like if instead if I did this, like it's, I don't know, just I'll just say I had another const obj equals here, and then I did this like obj nick2. Uh, this is no longer considered an object declarator. Sorry, variable declarator, right? It's considered something else.
So the syntax
Right?
you're showing is actually illegal, but if you did like put it on the right
Oh,
side, then
sorry,
yeah.
sorry. The dot. Sorry, I'm doing the. Sorry, this is what I meant. Sorry, if I were to do this,
Yeah,
we
that would
still
be
wanted to.
that is yeah, that's no longer a variable declarator.
Yeah. So it's is it a member expression still then? I guess.
Yeah, I think it's two member expressions inside an assignment expression. I forget.
Okay.
But yeah, I posted one in the chat. If you do an object destructuring like const, how in like React you use like const thing comma use or set thing
Yeah.
equals react.use state. That's still a
Yeah.
variable declarator, but it's not an identifier. It's an array destructuring. So you'll want to make sure
Okay.
that the variable declarator has an ID. And the way you do that is the same as in CSS. You do variable declarator left array bracket ID, right array bracket.
Okay.
Yep.
Like this. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I also like that it's approachable. Like I don't know. I wonder if they purposely went with it's not literally CSS selectors like you said, but it's very similar. Like I wonder if
Oh yeah.
do you think they went with that approach to make it approachable to, because typically I would say initially this was probably more for front end dev versus maybe Node, or I guess it was for Node too initially.
Yeah, I'd say it is. I don't know for sure, but I would be shocked if it wasn't intentionally basically CSS. Like ES Query is
Yeah.
based off CSS from my understanding. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if it was like front end versus back end. I know JavaScript was much more popular in front end for a long time, and now like the last
Yeah.
decade it's really gotten popular in back end. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good query syntax CSS. Like as much as people want to
Yeah.
poop on it, it's great. It works.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, speaking of CSS, like you can even just do like find me attributes with ID. That one doesn't make sense, but you could target stuff like area label
Yeah.
and then something, and then all of a sudden you can start writing your CSS to make it kind of forces you to be accessible, because like that
Yeah.
CSS doesn't apply because you haven't applied it to something like that, or anyways, I know we're getting out of the scope of ESLint there, but yeah, no, I now that I understand what that is here, that definitely makes it more approachable, because like my first instinct, like you saw initially, was like, okay, I've got this function, and then I'm just gonna start doing ifs or switches within there, and it's just not necessary. You drill it down first, and then you apply what you need to on the set of nodes that you really want to apply it to, instead of just constantly having this generic thing where you're saying if this or switch that. So
Yeah.
this is like I know we really haven't written much here, but like the time we've been talking about all this, I found it like super useful. Like,
Yay.
like I mean, it's nice that we have the code written here, but I really like that we talked through all these things because it seems obvious some of it now that we've talked through it, but I just like that we went through that exercise because it I just hopefully if folks catch the replay or that they'll find this helpful too.
Definitely.
But yeah, I found it pretty cool because I haven't had a need to do custom rules yet, but I can definitely see a need at some point. Because like typically what I don't know what you do in your projects normally, but like I remember when I started doing React back in 2016 professionally, and then all the rage at the time was like Airbnb ESLint
Oh
rules,
my
and
God.
nothing against Airbnb, but I find the rules very aggressive and there's a lot of things where I'm like, really, that's like, and I ended up shutting off a lot of things, and then in the end, what I ended up doing was like when I was at Dev 2, I eventually just put it back to the recommended ESLint rules, and we were using Preact, so I just went with Preact recommended,
Mm-hmm.
and that was essentially the core of the rules we had, and then like I think I might have tweaked a couple for like module exports because we were using aliases in Webpack, and I think there was some wonkiness of modules not being detected. So there's a module resolution rule. I forget what it's called. It's like import/export module or anyways. But my main point is I went back to basics with, and slowly just having the good enough ones. And then as you go through your code base, you'll realize, okay, we should add this, or, then you can kind of pick and pull what you really need additionally.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I agree. Yeah, nothing against Airbnb the company, but a lot of things against Airbnb the ESLint preset.
Yeah.
One of the things that the ESLint, generally the JavaScript linting community as a whole, shout out back in the day, TSLint, learned the hard way through many years of experience, is that linters are best when being useful. And if you cannot prove usefulness, you cannot prove that you're providing value in a rule, that rule is offensive to the user and they'll probably both turn it off and learn to hate the linter. So like the ESLint plugin, probably the Airbnb preset, they had a lot of rules that were not applicable to most JavaScript projects. Things like use semicolons, use curly brackets in this way, prefer this thing, prefer that thing. And while those may be really good rules for some projects, perhaps the Airbnb style guide, they just made people think that ESLint is a nitpicky jerk and hate it. And then they abandoned it the way you did.
Yeah. But on the positive side of that, this worked well for Airbnb. This is the rules they wanted to use. Like they open sourced the rules. They didn't have to, right? Like they did, and then people went with it. But again, this goes back to like the coding style. Like this is what the coding style that they require at Airbnb, and that's what they all agreed on, or whoever, like a few people might have agreed on. But that works for their project, and I still think it's great they open sourced it. I love it when people open source things. Doesn't mean you have to use everything, right? But it's also well, I think also just making it open source also just kind of gives you a bird's eye view of how to do some of these things. Like we walked through it today, how to build a more complex rule, but I don't know. I'm a big fan of open source, as you are. So like, I just like it when people do open source their stuff. Doesn't mean you have to use it, but
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really interesting study in what you should or shouldn't open source in different ways. Like +1, it was a strong net positive that ESLint, or part of it, Airbnb open sourced its ESLint preset. I think in retrospect, something that would have been even more of a positive with fewer downsides would have been open source the stuff that's relevant to everyone, and then also a style guide based plugin on top of that one, and then promote people to the one that's not the style guide, because unless you really want to adhere to Airbnb style guide, you don't need all those rules.
No, you're getting a shout out there, Josh. All your work on ESLint is a great example of this. Honestly, I used to like its default configs. Now I think they're much better. So that's a shout out to you. And also thanks Joy of UI for checking out that. Joy of UI is Ryan, somebody in Virtual Coffee, actually.
Wait, Ryan Conlon?
uh, yeah, your last name's escaping me at the moment. But yeah, Ryan's awesome, and thanks for checking out the stream, and thanks for the y'all rule there. Um, but yeah, no, this has been super fun, Josh. Like, I, I mean, I definitely don't want to monopolize your stream, but I'd love to come back on again another time if we could build something even more complex next time, maybe. Now that we've kind of got a baseline. No rush, and I'm inviting myself. I'm not asking you.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think it would be I think it would be fun to do another one, and maybe I wonder if folks could think up of like a real world example that they actually need that we could build. That's a little harder to get maybe, but
yeah. Well, I think on a next stream we could talk about fixing, like adding an auto fixer, but we could think about it. Yeah, this will be fun. I'd love to have you on again. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, and no rush. I'm being pushy there, but I just had a lot of fun doing this. This is super cool. So
cool. Well, Nick, before I shout myself out and give off all my contact links and beg for money, is there anything you'd like to say and shout out for your side?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm pretty much Nicky T online everywhere. I'll drop my website because that's where most of my things are, and also I do stream on Twitch too, like Josh. I'm streaming tomorrow with Kat Ballar from Storyblock. She's a dev advocate over there. So I'm gonna be learning a bit about Storyblock. I've never used it. It's a CMS, so I'm pretty excited about that. And yeah, if folks want to give me a follow on Twitch, you can just head over to imdeveloper.live. That's me just dropping in cool domain names, but
I'm so jealous of that freaking domain name, by the way.
I don't even honestly. I've been doing web dev for a number of years, but when I went to register imdeveloper.com, I was like, that's really available, and so like I bought it, and the funny thing about it is like I don't know if you've seen that account on Twitter. I am developer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it doesn't have the same picture anymore, but it used to be Napoleon Dynamite for years.
Mm-hmm.
But my coworker when I worked at the cafe thought I was that person because of my domain name. but I never said I was, but I never said I wasn't either. So I think my old coworker still thinks I'm that meme account.
That's awesome.
Anyways, that's my little shout out to something funny. So.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I just posted a few more things. I'm really looking forward to that. Storyblock also is pretty sweet. They're like a new thing, and yeah, I'll see
you. Have you used it before? Or?
I've seen it in a couple of conference talks. Looks pretty sweet.
Okay.
Read their docs. So you could say I'm an expert.
Yeah.
You'd be wrong.
Read docs, so basically, here's my certificate.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited about it. I haven't. Honestly, I don't know about yourself, but I haven't used the CMS like professionally since 2016.
Oh wow. We used Contentful at Codecademy, and it also had our own CMS for the learning stuff, and it was so nice. Like just spinning up a new marketing page from the CMS, or like letting the marketing for product folks modify copy dynamically. It's really nice.
Yeah, my last experience was Sitecore in 2016 when I was working in .NET, and so anyways.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm excited about it. Anyways, I'll stop rambling on here.
Cool. And now I will post my things. So I love these stream element commands. Bang Josh. Bang sponsor. I'm full-time open source dev. I work, as has been mentioned, on TypeScript ESLint along with a few smaller projects. That's the tooling that lets you run ESLint and oh yeah, there it is. Bang book. ESLint and Prettier on TypeScript. I also wrote a book, Learning TypeScript. It's great. It's through O'Reilly. Highly recommend. I exist on the internet thanks to sponsors like hopefully you, a listener, who give me money so I can do open source because I don't have another job. Anyway, this has been a pleasure. And are you grabbing the book?
Yeah, I don't know where I have. I do own it.
I believe you. I've seen it before.
Here it is.
Oh,
there you go.
In the trash, it appears. That's fine.
Oh no, it's I have stuff lying on the floor. I've been doing my taxes, so I have some stuff.
Taxes.
Down there. But yeah.
Well, that's fun. I love it. I also have this instinct. Whenever someone mentions a book that I have, I like have to show it. It's great. It's like a physical, non-fungible token.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, anyways, this has been super awesome. Thanks so much for having me on. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm glad. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, wait, shoot. I'm sorry. I'm saying goodbye. We need to raid a channel.
Okay, yeah.
Does anyone have a channel that they want to suggest I raid?
Let me open Twitch because I'm in the back view right now. So
Ooh, yeah.
give me 1 sec. I think Griffin's on Twitch.
Griffin is always on Twitch. I
Yeah.
don't mind raiding him, but like I feel like it's my default.
Yeah. Is Bald Bearded Builder online? Oh yeah, go to
Yeah.
Bald Bearded Builder.
Yeah?
Yeah,
All right.
I'll send you his link. All right.
Oh, raid. I see him.
Yeah.
That's a great username. Really restricts you though if you ever change your. All right, and we're raiding in 10 seconds.
All right. Later, friends. You want me to stay on, Josh, or say bye now, or?
And we're raiding. We can say bye. I'm actually pretty tired. I'm gonna go shopping to Target.
Yeah.
Do a nice little Target run, but
No,
this was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. No, I learned a lot. So.
Yay! I'm glad. All right. Bye.
All right. See you later.